Marc Andreini is my guest today, along with Cody Murphy and Kirk Putnam, aka KP. We'll share Marc's career today and hear some of his stories. So sit back and enjoy my visit with Marc, and we'll hear about his stories growing up as a surfboard builder and a little bit about his insurance background here on Saddle and Sea.
That's my dad and Clayton Sanchez. He's a former El Presidente. They were best friends. They were Mavericks together, I think, in 1969.
I have a little Clayton Sanchez story. So my father-in-law built this building almost 30 years ago, specifically for our furniture store that my wife runs, and she's in the back now.
Right.
And so her dad was up helping out, I don't know, one weekend. And apparently his wife had come in unbeknownst to him and bought a bunch of furniture. And then my wife's dad called, hey, thanks for buying furniture from us. There's an outstanding balance, blah, blah, blah.
Outstanding balance.
He became
I love it.
unglued. He said something like, you son of a bitch, if you ever come around here, I'm going to blow you away with this shotgun. He was like really upset that she had come in and bought furniture. I couldn't believe it.
That's kind of the MO for the furniture business up here, though.
Yeah, it's just not a very friendly.
That's me and my Uncle George. See, we have our round badges on, I believe. That'll be year 1 or 2. I love that photo because we're posing by the outhouses. That's a real high-class photo.
Did you guys Maverick together?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah, and he was considered a senior at 50 years old then. He's 50. I was like 32 or whatever the minimum age is.
Yeah.
So we always thought, we thought people that age were just ancient.
God, I was, 60 when I went in. Just 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah. And then that was our posse. My dad and my uncle and all of his friends, we all were together, every year. And they're all gone. That's why I don't go anymore. But those were some really great years.
You really notice it on that ride, people, disappearing forever.
We
especially
watch
with
them,
the Anmarata.
And every year it's bigger.
It seems that way.
And it's really hard. Yeah, it is really tough.
First they stop riding.
Well, a lot of them go right to the end. But this is classic. Like, that's my dad and Judd Morris. Judd Morris was a horse trainer. My dad met all these guys on the ride.
He looks like a horse trainer.
And that's how my dad ended up, buying and selling studs. And then they would buy, an interest in a stud, and then they would, buy the yearlings, and they would race them. And so my dad, fell into all that. Somewhere in the later 60s was when he started doing that. And, but, the interesting thing is that our family ended up in farming and ranching, but it's because my grandfather came over from Italy, and I want to think in 1910. It was a long time ago. And he wanted to come here. He didn't want to be in Italy, never went back. And he was a professor of philosophy. He had a degree from the University of Rome. And so he's not the typical, all Italians that come to America were, bricklayers, basically, or pizza chefs. So they were, so he's unusual in that he was a what do you call it? A teacher. He's a white collar guy. So he comes to America. He was recruited for a special program to bring, brilliant people over, and they were going to be teaching at USC before it was USC. So he's in Los Angeles, and they have him locked in these dorms at night. It was a 2-year program. And so after year 1, my grandfather goes out the second story window, and down the the trellis and escapes, and they never found him. And so he stayed in America and had a family before he became a citizen. Yeah.
That's a great story.
So he bought the Italian newspaper. I don't remember the name of it, in Los Angeles. And all the big businessmen would take out ads, the oil companies and the banks. So the Gianninis had Bank of Italy, and they would take ads out in his paper, and they became best friends. So the Giannini family got my grandfather to go into the insurance business, and he made a partnership with a couple other guys, and they started a life insurance company. And you'd collateralize the loan, so that the Dago would take out a loan, the Bank of Italy, and you'd collateralize it with life insurance, because then in the 20s, real estate was a depreciating asset. It'd be like pledging your used car for collateral. The real estate would depreciate, it wouldn't appreciate then. So he founded an insurance company, and then the Gianninis and the Andreini family moved to San Mateo, and that would be in the 30s, early 30s, they moved to San Mateo. And they both sold their companies to the Transamerica Corporation. So Bank of Italy became Bank of America, and my grandfather's life insurance company becomes Occidental Life. And they all retire. And then my grandfather gets married and has a family. So he's already done all this before my dad's even born. And he marries a girl who's 19 years old. He's like 45. And he has a family. And so my dad was raised in San Mateo, married my mom, who's from San Francisco, and we're all born there in San Mateo. And when my grandfather started the insurance agency so that my dad and his brothers and sisters could have a job. So they all worked as bank tellers at B of A when they got out of high school, and then they went to work in the insurance agency. And my grandfather introduced them to all of his friends. Well, all those people were in ag that he met when he was in the life insurance business. This is all the Italian farmers. There were cattlemen and dairymen and farmers. And so that's how we ended up in ag. So then the insurance business was all ag. And so my dad wrote all these accounts, like Clayton Sanchez, who had Sanchez and Sons here in the valley. And they were Mavericks together, and my dad wrote all those kind of accounts. And they all duck hunted and pheasant hunted together. And then he got into horses, the racehorse thing. And so that's how, and then my dad ended up buying vineyards, he invested in vineyards, and then he had his horse breeding ranch in Piscinas. And he was appointed one of the 12 racehorse commissioners by Schwarzenegger. And he served 2 terms as a racehorse commissioner.
Oh, is that right?
So we called him the commissioner, for the rest of his life after that. And so that's where all this connection was to ranches. And of course, so we're all history buffs. So we read, all our customers were in the Cattlemen's Association. And so we got to know all these guys. And it was really beautiful how the lifestyle of the ranchers was similar to surfing, because it was a lifestyle. It wasn't a money thing. Ranchers just loved the lifestyle of raising cattle and working the land. And there was just a natural affinity. And of course, all the great Spanish land grants, San Onofre and, Mission San Juan, or, you've got
Mission Viejo, San Juan.
Viejo.
Yeah, I mean, they're
At the Hollister Ranch, settled by, Mr. Hollister, who was the mayor of Hollister in Hollister, California, and all that. I've read all these different histories. So, all the great surf turns out to be along the ranch lands. And even our early years of surfing the ranch, we made friends with the ranch hands. And they loved us surfers. Not all of them were the bad stories about, Arnie and Floyd.
yeah.
But, the guys on the Bixby were, really cool guys, and they would come down and barbecue with us when we would camp there. And they loved the whole surfing thing. They didn't surf, but there was just a natural affinity. And so that's kind of just a sweep of good fortune for me, because, I had nothing to do with any of that. I just grew up surfing, because when my parents divorced, I was 5 and my mom moved us to Santa Barbara. So all my surf stuff happened when we moved there in like 56 or 57. I grew up there. So that's why I'm a surfer, because of my mom. She taught us to body surf and swim, and she loved the ocean and introduced us to that whole lifestyle. And that was our whole lifestyle. So then fast forward, it all just kind of tied together in an interesting way.
Speaking of the missions and land grants, there's somebody that I think because I caught him today in your book. So we had my great-great-great-grandfather was able to get a land grant, Spanish land grant up in Petaluma, and that was Bojorquez.
No kidding.
And Steve, which I read today, he had another name. Was it Jewski or something like that?
Well, we pronounce it Krajewski.
Krajewski. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was his stepdad's name.
Okay.
That's how we knew him, though, growing up, was Steve Krajewski.
So when I met KP, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. A little late. Late to the show.
That's okay. We were just getting caught up and acquainted. Yeah. But I read in Marc's book today about Bojorquez.
Yeah.
But there was Steve Krajewski.
What was an adopted name?
And I saw that, and then I saw Bojorquez, and I go, well, I never knew that.
Same guy.
So did he actually adopt him? His stepdad?
Mr. Krajewski did adopt Steve.
Interesting.
Really early on, when he was very young. And I don't think Steve actually met his real dad till, I don't even know if he found out, but it was pretty late, like 15, 16 years old.
Oh.
But they formed a relationship later on and everything. But it is part of your family.
Yeah, when I met KP, that came up with Bojorquez somehow. And then KP knew more about the story than I did, which was really interesting, because we had done a lot of research on Bojorquez. My dad did. When I was younger, we would go up to, what was the canyon? Topanga Canyon. And we found this old gentleman. He was like one of the last descendants of the Bojorquez, right? I mean, of the
land grant family.
The land grant family. And I was about 11 then, so I was kind of young. I kind of got it, and I was enthused a little bit, but being able to visit with KP about that was pretty cool. And then with you, there's a little tie-in as well.
One of the things that a lot of people hate about him is that he does know more about your family and your wife's family and her cousin's family than you guys do.
That's absolutely true. You're right about that.
Yeah, it's very true. A lot of people want to take him out.
He's a book of knowledge. There's no question about that.
I don't know what kind of knowledge.
So you were born in 1951?
51.
And then I guess you went up north and then came back down, like you just said, to Santa Barbara area.
Well, we were born in San Mateo. And so that's where I was born. I love it. People say, oh, you're from Santa Barbara. I said, no, I'm from San Mateo. I love doing this to people. And they say, where's that? That's the standard answer, because who the heck would know? And it's by the San Francisco airport, basically. It's the suburbs where the people who worked in San Francisco would live down the peninsula, maybe as far as Woodside. But that was the zone. It was like the country. And then you'd get on the train, which ran along the Bayshore Freeway along the bay, and it'd take you right to the financial district. And that's how everybody worked. You lived down in the country if you were successful, and you'd commute to the city every day on the train. So we were all born there. And then my mom was also raised in San Francisco. She loved surfing and the beach and all that. She'd been to Hawaii once, to Waikiki. And when my parents was a really volatile marriage, she wanted to move us really far away, and she'd never even been to Santa Barbara. They're dirt, my mom's dirt poor. She'd never been to Santa Barbara, but she loved Waikiki, and she'd seen a picture of looking from East Beach down to Padaro Lane, where it kind of pokes out, and it reminded her of looking down at Diamond Head in Waikiki. And that's why she picked it to move there. So sight unseen, she put us all in the car and we moved there. And she got a job as an interior decorator at Hayward's on Santa Barbara Street.
Yeah.
Not a bad place to land.
And she would sell the material to make the drapes and upholster the couches and all that. And most of these people were all like movie stars, and they're all incognito then. Nobody wanted you to know. They wanted to like fit in with the locals. And she said they were all so cheap, There's nothing like it became, right? And but she had a way of making your place look so cool for like no money. That was her specialty.
She had good style.
Really good style. And we shopped at all the thrift stores and the Goodwill in Santa Barbara. And so in the 50s and early 60s, all the clothes in the thrift stores were from the Roaring 20s, which is a really high level, real pure silk Hawaiian shirts, and suede saddle shoes. And all this stuff was gabardine sports coats and mink stoles, all this stuff you could buy for $1 or a quarter, 50 cents.
High quality stuff.
So we're down there, and I mean, we would buy our clothes at these thrift stores, and we were cool because everybody was an individual then. There was none of this conformity stuff. All my pictures I have, it's like, look at this shit we're wearing, We were like, you had to be cool without having any money. That was kind of the lifestyle there.
Man, that stuff is long gone. Huh?
It's long gone now.
That sounds really cool, though.
Yeah.
And then you started surfing around 1961, like when you were about 10 years old?
On a surfboard. But in 1957, I guess I was in the second or third grade, we go to East Beach every single weekend after we did our chores, and we'd spend the whole day body surfing. And nobody surfed in the 50s. You never saw anyone surf. There were no surfboards. There was still the balsa wood era. So we're belly. You could buy a styrofoam, like a little, look like a belly board. They would only last for one wave and they'd break in half. So we maybe owned one of those. So we would just body surf.
I think I remember those.
Yeah, all day long we're body surfing.
Runners in the back.
And this is at East Beach, so you know how big the surf is there. But we're just little kids, so riding waves this big. And we just grew up in the ocean. We couldn't wait to go every weekend. And that's what we did our whole childhood. So in 61, the Gidget thing had started. And my mom had told us about what it was like riding boards in Waikiki and how beautiful it was to be standing up and riding along. And my brother and I thought, man, it would be so cool. We could pretend that we're shooting each other and then you'd fall dead off the board into the water while you're riding the wave. This is what we visualized would be cool about surfing, And so my dad actually bought us 2 pop-outs. I have no idea where they came from. They had no labels. And so they were like defin pigs with a pine fin and like just a pigmented, they were obviously popped out of a mold, no stringer.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
They were 9 feet long. I have pictures of them. And they weighed 30 pounds and we weighed 80 pounds. We couldn't carry them. We had to double up, one on each end. And they're unsurfable. Really, I would say it took almost 2 years before I would say I could paddle into a wave and stand up and turn and walk, because the board's zero rocker. You'd catch any wave that was any steepness and you just go straight down and pearl. They're really hard to ride, And
were you riding those at East Beach too?
We tried East Beach. That was an absolute waste of time. So my mom we figured out that Ledbetter was a surf spot. So she would drive us to Ledbetter. I do not recall anybody surfing there. I don't remember anybody being there. But we would surf at Ledbetter, and you could catch the wave and ride it up onto the high tide line, and there'd be a bank of dying seaweed about this deep, and you'd crash your board into it and run off the nose and fall into the kelp. And we surfed there, and we surfed the sandbar. We go to West Beach. The harbor master didn't want you to, but we'd paddle straight across to the sandbar because, that's where the boats come in and out. And we surfed the sandbar, and I don't remember ever seeing anyone surf there, but that's where we surfed. And the waves would be like this big at the end of the sandbar. And the sandbar was really big then. I remember.
Sandspit?
Yeah, the sandspit.
Sandspit?
But it's a real great big sandbar that wrapped around part of the way into the harbor.
There was a lot more beach.
A lot more sand, yeah.
It goes in and out, but yeah, back then it was really big.
It's big, yeah. And so, I'd say we surfed for 1 or 2 years, and I don't remember seeing anyone ride a surfboard. So then finally we moved to Montecito, because we lived downtown by the old mission. When the first years we lived there. And now we lived at Miramar, and we could ride our bikes to Miramar. And there's kids surfing there. There's like a dozen guys, that were regulars. And so we were immediately like right in with the local Grimmies. We fit right into that group. And so that's really when the whole surf thing was up and going. It's more like 63 and 4, And there was our whole group of guys. We still are friends with all those guys we grew up with there.
Are you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
The ones that are still kicking.
Yeah. But, like Greg Huglin and Don Balch and the Zoldas brothers and
Jock
Macaba and all those guys, who grew up there.
Is he related to John Balch, JB?
Yes, they're brothers.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
They're brothers. He's the older brother. Don is my brother's age, so they're just the Grimmies.
What timeline about inspired you to start shaping, and what drove you to get into shaping surfboards?
That is such a funny question. It's not about shaping, because you were surfboard builders in the old days. So you built a surfboard. It wasn't about shaping is just one step. But what I say that poverty is the mother of invention, because we had no money. My dad bought us these pop-outs. It was a huge luxury because we would have never been able to afford a surfboard. Well, the first thing I did is I got a ding in mine, and I wonder how you fix this thing. So I'm in my mom's in the tool shed on Anacapa Street, and I found this putty. This is all stuff for painting the house, because we used to restore our own houses. There's a family. We'd strip the paint, prime it, paint, spackle. So I've got my box of spackle, and I put spackle in the nose. Then I mixed the paint. I'm going to mix up a color. Well, I don't know how to mix colors. It turned out to be purple. So I painted my board purple. I had a ding this big in the nose, and I ended up painting the whole board purple, to make it all blend in. And I just liked working on the board. And so then I found a guy who had a board that he sold me. It was all delaminated. I bought it for $5. And so I restored it. I made a fin out of plywood, and I patched the nose and tail. And at this point, we now moved to Montecito so I could ride my bicycle over to the White Owl shop in Summerland, and I would get scraps from them, pieces of foam and fiberglass and a little bit of resin out of the drip bucket. And so now I could actually start using real materials. And so I was patching boards, and all my friends would ask me if I'd repair their boards. So I became a ding repairman. I was by 13, that's how I made all my money. So I started at 12 doing it. And so when I was 14, I remember they had half of a blank there, and I took it home and shaped a really cool, what I thought was a belly board. It was a 5-foot baby longboard, and I glassed it, pigmented it, made a fan, and all the guys were surfing it at the Miramar shore break and standing on it, So that was my first board, which I have pictures of all this. I am 14. And so, and then I started restoring surfboards. I buy beater boards broken in half, no nose or whatever, and I completely put new nose, tail blocks, make a fan, pigment them. And so I made all my money doing that. And then when the shortboard revolution started, which was the beginning of 1968, it just all exploded. And so at 68, I'd have been like 17. I was born in 51. I can't do the math.
60. Yeah.
But it was somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And so I used my brother's board, went into the cave at Steamer Lane, destroyed the whole thing. There's nothing left of it. So I stripped off the glass and reshaped a 7.3 V-bottom I made out of it. It was kind of like my Vaquero today. It was like my foundational. That one board just came out it worked so well. I surfed it for a couple of years till I broke it in half on a big day at Pleasure Point. And I loved that board. And so from that board on, by the next year, I made another one. And by that time, people would see my board, even after only 3 boards. I'd go to the beach and someone would ask me where I got the board. And I told them I made it. So they'd ask me, will you make me one? Sure. So by the time I was 18, I had 1 order a week. Every week I had an order, and I would make the board on the weekend from start to finish with no power tools. I'd shape it with my Surform, and I would laminate it. I'd take a piece of cardboard, and I'd cut a little rectangle for a squeegee. I'd take a garden hose and lay it on the board to get an outline with a purple crayon, cut it out, shape it. I'd make a fin on a piece of broken glass with all the rail scraps of the cloth. I bought my materials from Bob Weiss in San Francisco or John Mell in Santa Cruz. Those 2 guys sold materials, so I'd buy the blank and the resin and the cloth from them.
You're going back and forth to San Mateo and Montecito at this time.
I've done that all my life.
Right. So I want to, yes, part of the board building starts in San Mateo, but...
That's right. I spent a year at my dad's. That's the year I happened to be
split
at my dad's for a year before I went back to Santa
Peter
Barbara.
Mill's dad or something like that?
It is Peter Mill's dad. Yeah. Yeah. John Mell is who we all know. Peter's just his kid. He's a great guy, though, all of them. And so I had an order, and I'd make them from scratch. And then one of the guys in Half Moon Bay had seen my shaping. And at this point, he asked me, hey, let's partner up. He was a really good laminator. And he had power tools. He had a Rockwell, and he had a compressor. He did airbrush and all that. The guy's really good. He said, hey, why don't you shape? And I mean, how did I get a job shaping? I'd just shape boards with a Surform and a garden hose. But they look good. I mean, I just had an eye for it, I guess. And so now I'm shaping, we call them Half Moon Bay surfboards. And we made boards for everybody in Half Moon Bay, including Jeff Clark when he was like 12 years old. I shaped all their boards. So I'm like 19. And I'd spent the summer house sitting for my dad. And then I left home and just went down the coast seeing if anybody needed a shaper. And I got hired at Santa Barbara. It's by Spindrift. That was in 1971, I think. And they quickly, after about 6 months, decided they were going to sell the shop. So I bought all their tools for $100 and their racks, which I still have them and still use them. Get my money's worth. Yeah. And I just changed it to Andreini in 71. I just used my name at that point. So I didn't pursue shaping. It just happened.
when did you get that shack on Oceano?
That was 71 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
that's
telling
my
Kevin
first
about-
shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I ended up living up the street.
Yeah.
And we met at Channel Islands in 72.
Yes.
Yeah. Marc was Al's first employee, and I was his babysitter and got to run the shop because Terry got pregnant with Heidi.
Was Heidi older than Britt?
No, maybe
I
it
thought
was
Britt was first and then Heidi.
Yeah, then Heidi. So he's pregnant with Heidi. After the second one, she's like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah,
Get
that's
Kirk to do
right.
it.
So when you were involved with
That's how we met.
Channel Islands, was that after your experience with, what was it, White Owl down in Summerlin? Was that after that?
Oh, way after, yeah, because White Owl, that was just me being a kid on the surf team. I didn't make any White Owls.
Yeah, you kind of skipped that part.
Yeah, Jeff White and Brian Bradley made the boards. And they're like, you know, my parents' age. And they were like, they took us kids in. And they, you know what I didn't know until many years later is that there are only 8 of us on the surf team, which is a big deal. I mean, you'd think there'd
That's
be
a
all
lot
kinds.
for a local shop.
Well, in that time era too.
But Jeff treated all the kids like they were, I mean,
On
he
the
was
surf
really
But Kirk,
unbelievable.
there was dozens and dozens of I mean, they sold 100 or 200, a couple hundred boards a year. So 80 isn't very many. I didn't know it, but he took in the kids that he thought needed to have an eye kept on them. Now, you can believe that part of the story. But all of us kids who didn't have dads, you know, that were kind of
That's somewhere to go.
loose cannons, he took us in. I didn't know that. And we had this sense of belonging. It was like, for us, it was the greatest part of our childhood to be on the White Owl surf team.
Yeah.
And we go to all the little contests and stuff. And, you know, Jeff, he'd have a 6-pack of beer, and the judges are drinking beer. And one time we're at Carp having a contest, and my brother wheeled around in his heat and caught a whitewater, not even knee high, wheels around because the bell's about to go off, and he does a headstand just before he hits the beach. Jeff started laughing so hard his chair went over backwards. I'll never forget it. It was so hysterical.
He's a good guy.
You know, it was such a great experience. So that was the surf team. And when they stopped making boards, right about when I started, then Jeff White commissioned me to carry on the label about 1974.
Yeah, they moved up to Cabrillo Street, and that part kind of stopped.
At
and then
Carrillo.
didn't really stutter very long.
No, they went into retail, and so they had Carrillo Street, and then in Goleta, and then San Luis Obispo.
Right.
And so I made boards for their 3 stores along with my custom stuff. And me working for Channel, I did piecework. I had 4 days a week at my shop, and I spent 2 days a week roughly doing piecework. I glassed for Yater. I did some for Bradbury. I did some for Wilderness, and I sanded for Al. And then I later laminated for Al when he was growing. I just did it on the side.
And then was that after you were
That was
with
in the
Rennie?
early 70s.
Yater?
Yeah.
That was after being
Yater's
with
a little bit
Well,
later.
no, see, I glassed at Yater in 72.
Yep.
And then I just shared the shop. I didn't work for Rennie. I just worked for him for 6 months when I was 20. And then he was thinking of retiring from building surfboards. And I asked him if he wanted to sell out his business and I'd take it over. And I'll never forget, he's like, why don't you just move in with me and we'll just split the overhead? Swear to God. It was a 5-minute conversation because we already knew each other. So I moved into Gray Avenue and we shared the building, split the expenses in half, and he contracted all of his glassing to me. So now, and we both made to about 250 boards each a year. I made the same as Rennie. I made a lot of boards in that period. So now I have making 500 boards a year. You know, I had a really nice business there. So I wasn't working for Rennie.
I'd switch from CI to running the shop for Rennie and then working in the back.
Yeah,
when this is all going on.
But when I was there, he worked for both of us because we split his salary in the showroom. That's how he did it.
It was
He doesn't
not
need
very much money.
He didn't know that. But
You guys
That's
probably
how it
had some
worked.
really good times though, huh?
Oh, we did.
I mean,
It was a lot
in the
of fun.
heyday.
And Merv Larson, did Merv rent part of the shop back then,
not
Mark?
that I know of. No, he didn't.
I think that's before.
No, me and Rennie's, we paid all the bills, believe me.
Yeah, before Mark came in, Merv Larson had a little part of the shop
Might have,
too,
yeah.
and lived in his van out in front.
I remember him being there when
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
there, but I don't remember those kind of details. But that was a great period for me. I made 76,
Early
7, and
70s,
8,
mid 70s. Yeah.
roughly 7, 8, and 9, later 70s. I remember seeing my tax return, and I would make 16, think about this. I remember making $16,000 a year that I lived on, so I don't remember what the gross was. And my mortgage is $250 a month, because this is in the 70s. So I was like living a cushy life.
In Santa Barbara.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had
Changed
a
a little bit,
house, I bought a house, I had a family. My wife didn't work. You know, those were like the good old days. And that's it. It was like that. All of us were blue collar. You were either a teacher or a fireman or a dentist or a lawyer, or you were a blue collar guy, you know, fisherman or carpenter or whatever, scammer. Most of them, our friends were all scammers, you know, and that's what it was like. It was just really a basic place.
What was it like So you've definitely been around a lot of really key people in the industry, which is, I think, pretty fascinating. And your time with George Greenough was,
I met George with Kirk. I didn't ever know George, only as
you surf with him.
I'd surf with him, and he'd come into the Yater shop. I was super shy in the 70s. And so he'd come into the shop, but
But KP wasn't right.
I knew him earlier from surfing and selling him material and stuff, and kind of had a relationship with him through Paul Gross, really, and different guys. Right. And you met George later on, really made a relationship with him more recently.
Yeah, our closeness really only happened in about 2016.
But I should say you were influenced by his ideas, though, right?
Oh, my God, yeah. Well, he's the greatest influence that there is in surfing, and especially for me. But it's in my book. The story I write is really it's probably the greatest day of surfing. It's in the top 3 of my lifetime. Was to be, I was at the ranch. I mean, this is a whole nother short story, but I'll throw it out just because it's so funny. But, me and Margot were like this. Margot moves to Santa Barbara is a big frickin' deal. She's like number 3 in the world at the time.
Margot Godfrey.
And I'm the guy that moved right in when she lost her board at Hammond's. I saved it from the rocks. And I don't know how I ever got up the nerve to, hey, you want to go to La Conchita this weekend? She's 14 and she's 13 and I'm 15. I don't even have a driver's license, but I'm driving my car. My mom doesn't know it. So I invite her to go. I'm going to take her surfing, which I did. And we were like this for the next couple of years until I moved up to stay with my dad for a year. Anyway, so Margot is from La Jolla, which is a huge surf culture place. And all these famous people would come up. I have pictures of hanging out with Margot, and some of like Jeff Devine's in one of the pictures, and Tom Ortner.
It's like the Wind and Sea crew.
Oh, all the Wind and Sea guys. They'd come up and see Margot. Well, I don't know who they are, but they all want to come up and they want Margot to take them to the ranch. Well, what does she know about the ranch? Well, of course, I'm the man about town in her life, because I'm 15. And so she would have me take these guys around. And so my funniest story is that Tom Ortner shows up with a Boston Whaler with twin 40 horsepower Evinrudes on it, and I'm the guide, and they stick me in the bow, and I show them all the ropes, how to launch off the pier. I've never even been to the ranch, but I've read the Surfing Guide to Southern California. I know every detail of every spot. I don't know how in God's name I got us to rights and lefts, but I knew right when to be there. We surfed it till the tide was too low. And then I told them, okay, the tide's going out. We got to go up to Governments. And how we got there, they never knew that I didn't know, but I got us there.
It wasn't easy back then either. There's a couple of spots in the kelp that...
Well, there's a channel that
there's a channel in the kelp. If you miss that...
find it. And I don't know how but we did. I found the channel and we went right up it. And it drops you right at rights and lefts. So anyway, now we're up at the Government. The tide's not low enough yet, and we're sitting there watching Danny Hazard riding a spoon with a Greenough fin on it. I'll never forget sitting there watching. We're waiting for the tide to drop. And then here comes a little Renault. Well, this must have come after. So here's this little Renault coming up the beach, a little like silver blue one with all the paint oxidized off it. There's a couple boards on the roof. And it was Danny Hazard and George Greenough. So Danny takes his board off, and it was a spoon that had a Greenough fin on it that George had reshaped into a tall, skinny flex fin. And we were watching Danny surf, who was one of the divers. He's older than us, really good surfer. And then George goes out, and I got to watch him on velo, and at the top of the point, it's 6 to 8 feet. And I watched as good as surfing that I've never seen better film of him surfing than what I watched. And I'm 15. I'm riding my Owl Nose Rider in the cove with my trunks on and a vest, because that's what we wore. And I was watching him do those figure 8 cutbacks, barrel riding. exploding out of a tube, doing a big figure 8 cutback.
That's like watching a spaceman. Really, that's what I always
It's
said.
incomprehensible.
The first time you see it, you were just like, "Whoa!"
What
I mean,
is
what
I-
is?
what was I seeing?
It
So-
really just.
And that was your first time taking the boat up there.
First time. Yeah.
Nailed it.
And and Tom Ortner's one of the most celebrated
Oh, he's a
La Jolla
really good
surfers.
surfer.
I'm
He
talking
passed
about
away.
these are the guys that we were around. That's how
Ortner's
it was
really
then.
good, super good surfer. Man.
Wow. And so I rode a wave way down, and I walked back up the top of the cove, and George had 2 boards. His other spoon was laying on the ground, and I'll never forget, I'm looking at it, and it's like, I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. It just looked like a toboggan. It's just this round lump laying there on the beach, and it's like, I had no idea what I was looking at.
Was it a spoon?
It was a spoon, yeah.
Oh, okay, velo.
Yeah, he had 2 of them.
That was exactly my impression when I first saw him in a magazine.
Yeah.
They were saying how he was so ahead of everything and he was standing on his head. And I was like 11 or 12 and I couldn't understand it.
You
Like the
can't wrap
board
your
was
head-
like,
it is.
how is that
does it
innovative?
work?
Like, you know,
And nobody rode knee boards.
I couldn't get it.
Guys belly boarded, but you didn't see anybody. Well, in the end of summer, you see him ride that wave at Sandbar, and you're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, it's real. You couldn't comprehend it. But so that stuck with me. And so the first complete surfboard I built was only a year and a half later. Yeah. And that V bottom, this is the part that I don't even always remember, but my friend Robbie Robinson, who I went to junior high with, he lived up on Mountain Drive, so he's neighbors with George. George had given him a tar paper on a piece of tar paper. He made this little template, a 7, and that's the template Robbie gave me that I made my little V bottom out of. Well, I forget that, but that's where, because look at the picture in the book. Well, there's a picture in there of it, of me holding it when I'm 16. And that template, George made and gave it to Robbie. Robbie gave it to me, and that's how it really was my first successful surfboard. And I never. It's interesting. I never kept the template. He must have just loaned it to me because I don't remember ever having it. I just remember that he gave it to me. I drew it on the board, and I must have just given it back. I never. Can you imagine not being smart enough to just make a copy of it?
You didn't know.
I never thought. Well, that isn't how we thought. What's somebody else's? I never traced anyone's surfboard. I never have. I always make my own everything. But because when I look at that template, it's like, wow, it's a really nice template. But yeah, so George was part of my, in the shortboards immediately. All shortboarding is influenced by George. There isn't one person who wasn't influenced by him. Everybody who doesn't know who he is, they're influenced by him, but they just don't know. They just don't know it. But they all are. All of us are. But I got firsthand experience.
The fin and the shortboard movement.
It's all George.
And him going back and forth to Australia, surfing with McTavish and Nat Young and Wayne Lynch affects that side of the country. And then there's a whole nother part of that I was telling you the other day about Brewer and Hinson and those guys making the miniguns in Hawaii, kind of at the same time. But
can you hand me that book, Kevin?
If George was a stand-up surfer, I wonder if his philosophy or viewpoints.
He did stand-up surf,
He did.
He got it. He got a spoon, and he just was
I didn't know
in the
that.
mind.
I always thought
he had
he was a knee
surfboard.
rider.
He went down to Yater's and got a Yater spoon, and rode it probably at Hammond's or somewhere, and just was like, I don't like this. It's too big and bulky, and he's a unique enough person to just like immediately try and solve the problem.
And is that when he got into the shortboard, kneeboard?
Well, he took the board and made a balsa wood. First, he made a foam board in high school, and he was friends with John Eichert. You don't mind me telling this, do you?
Of course not.
So John Eichert and him were high school buddies.
They're the same age,
And
actually.
they're the same age. They went to school together. And Eichert was starting to build balsa wood boards very early on, even before Yater, in the late 50s. So Eichert they become friends, and they build it wasn't really 5 feet. That blue board that he built in high school was about 6 feet long.
I think you're right.
It wasn't that short, but it had an Eichert slot fin on it. That's the beginning of him just trying to rethink, like, I don't like all this bulkiness. It doesn't make sense to me. So the next knee board was an all balsa wood spoon that he made that was dished out. And did he put twin fins on it at first, Mark?
He did. He started with 2 fins, and the board felt a little bit notchy when he'd turn it, so he kept moving them closer together. And the closer together he put the 2 fins, the better it worked. So he just pissed them off. And this is his own words. I just pissed them both off and just put one in the middle, and I never will look back.
So then
it's a waste of time. Just use one.
Then you get him fishing and looking at tuna fins and saying that's the fastest fish, and that evolves into changing fin templates to more of what we have today.
So that's really cool. So look at that template.
Is that the paper template?
That's the template on tar paper.
That's a swallowtail too, which
that was my doing. I have no idea where I came up with that idea.
That was pre-IPA by a number of years, but there was some swallowtails that
I came up with a swallowtail. I just thought it was a cool idea. And the other thing you can't see on this board is that I made a fin that was a triangle. There's an angled leading edge and then a vertical trailing edge. It was a red triangle. I made it out of the fin that came off of my brother's owl.
Isn't that
cool
picture
board
on a blackboard in there? The fin you're speaking of?
No. That's a keel fin. Yeah. This was just a triangle. It's just a straight triangle. That was a really great surfboard. But I mean, I look at that outline and I made a swallowtail. How can you comprehend it? So every time that I would see these kids crossing the street with their pants hanging down and their underwear up around their belly button, you should hear me, look at that guy, And then my wife found this picture one day and she started showing everybody, says, oh, really?
Yeah, but that was
what kind of a derelict would do that,
I remember
I was ahead of my time.
I was caught doing that. So I wanted to talk about this book a little bit. Mark put together this beautiful book in 2018? Well,
I think
is the print 2018?
2018, I think, is when we printed it. Correct.
And it's called The Gift. And it's a fascinating book. It has a lot of history, and it's a really, really, really good read for anybody that's interested in that. That's a beautiful book. Will you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, the idea is that I covered from 2000. I have to read it. It covers.
Well, the history goes back. The history of the surfboards in there.
I covered.
Like from Captain Cook.
I'm trying to remember. Right? I can never remember the years, but basically, all surfboard development happened between like 2013. I'm sorry, like 1913, roughly. When the redwood boards were in use in Hawaii, to 1983. When the thruster was invented. That's kind of all surfboards were developed between that period of time. And so, maybe I covered 100 years of surfboard history. And I made surfboards during 50 of those years. So I was building them right in the middle at the tail end of wood in the beginning of the shortboard revolution, the end of the longboard era. And then, so our generation developed all the modern shortboards up to the thruster. And so I was in the middle of it. So I just felt that I was in the ideal position to tell the story about how all that evolved, because I was a part of it. Instead of being a guy that was doing the research and writing a book, it's a firsthand explanation, a firsthand experience of doing it. So that's what I wanted to give that message, who the real architects of modern surfing are, from old to new. And so that's what I wanted to share, that knowledge with everybody that surfs, everybody who loves to surf. You want to know all that stuff. And then to make it fun for people that aren't really into the technical stuff, there's like 19 interviews of really cool, fun people that have been connected to over the years, and their stories and photos are in here. And almost every one of them has a ranch story. They're all unsolicited. But every one of them would digress into, oh yeah, there was this time I went to the ranch, and they go into these crazy stories that are just classic, you know? And that's just part of the culture. That's the fun of it. We all have these shared experiences. So it's got all that element in it also. So it's like a combination of history, technical, what makes a surfboard work, and, you know, the fun of how communities are tied together, you know? So I just feel, for me, it was a gift. I didn't choose for my mother to decide to move us to Santa Barbara. You know what I mean? It's nothing to do with me. It's just, there was in the right place at the right time. I'm just very fortunate.
Yeah, and you took advantage of it, which is...
Well, you don't know that you're doing that. You're just living the life that was kind of rolled out in front of you. You know, all of us do that. It's, you know what I mean? You can't really take any credit for it. I mean, being diligent and having passion for whatever's in front of you is just really important for everybody. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
You know, so that's really what it boils down to. That just happened to be what was in front of me, you know, and it didn't mean anything to anybody at the time. I just love working on fixing the ding.
Can you talk about your new book?
Oh, yeah. So the new book is, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but I mean, I'm doing it about George Greenough, and I'm doing it with George Greenough. So it kind of came about. I don't even know how it came about. It's kind of like my surfboard career. It was like, how did that happen? It just did. So this book, just from getting to know George and all the conversations that we had, yeah, you're right. It's kind of about edge boards.
Well, that's what it started with.
So I told George, yeah, I love that edge board you made in 71. I saw it, you know, and it was a crazy looking thing. I always wanted to make one, kind of learn about it, but I've been too busy. So in 71, now in 2016, I'm asking him about it, right? Because now I got around to it. Oh yeah, I always meant to make one of those. Oh yeah, I'll send you all the templates. Says, yeah, you ought to do it. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I bring it up? That's my first thought. Now, what am I going to say? No. And if he gives me all the stuff, what am I going to do? Not make the boards? And if I'm going to make them, how am I going to make them work? But I'm going to have to figure it out. So it was just like dumped in my lap. And it's like, oh my God, now what? So now I like say, okay, well, I'm just going to dive in and do it because I have to, right? And so I ended up making these boards. And in the meantime, he's telling me all these stories about how he came up with the idea and how big wave surfing is really suffering because the boards aren't designed right. And I live across the frickin' street, and I'm not exaggerating. When you're in my house, he's been there, you look out my living room window and you see the radar ball on top of the hill at Mavericks. It's right out my window. Like across the street.
Can you see the surf break down there?
No, you can't. You have to get up high. You can go if you go 3 blocks up the hill from my house, you look right down at it, you can watch them surf.
But the hill goes.
Yeah, the mountain's in front of it.
Yeah.
But, so, oh my God. Not only do I live there, I know all the guys that surf it, and I make boards for some of them. But now I'm making these boards, and it's like, and then George is like, oh yeah, those guys ought to ride these at Mavericks. I go, oh, great.
Is he talking about the real small boards?
No, the guns.
Well, small guns.
But they're not
They're
10 or 11 feet. They're
like 9 feet long.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. That's what we were talking about the other day, huh? Just
they're shorter
refining
and
the boards a little bit.
So that's how this second book comes around. So
it started with that.
When was that happening?
this all started when I was finishing this book. I'm talking to George because he proofread that. You know what's cool?
So this is recent. You're
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
up there.
this isn't old.
This
It's not
book
too
was
old.
only proofread by a couple people. You proofread it, Rennie proofread it, and George proofread it. Just a handful of people. Because he doesn't, I don't remember a lot of the stuff when I did what, and he remembers better than me.
I don't
KP's
know what
good
day
at
it
that.
is today, but
I know, but at the time, I caught him before it was too
somehow
late.
that stuff's in there.
I know. So that's how the book came about. So now he's telling me about his big wave experiences, and now he starts writing about them. And so the two of us kind of are doing an interview style story.
Oh,
right.
69.
Yeah, the swell of 69 is when he rode the biggest waves of his life.
And he found out I was there watching.
That's right.
And then we got going on that. We did an article for Surfer.
That's right.
And then this just keeps going.
I told George that Kirk told me that he watched him surf that swell. He's, no kidding. So why don't you guys write all that down? So him and I did an interview, right? We wrote it all down and sent it to George. He just loved it. And that sparked him to write a whole story about it. And so the next thing you know, him and I don't know why or how, but him and I decide that we're doing this, we're going to make a book out of it. Well, we were going to at least make an article for the journal out of it. Well, the further that you get into this rabbit hole, so now here I am again in this position where, okay, how did this happen to me? So how can you write a book about George Greenough, who's the most influential person in surfing? You better not screw this thing up. And how do you leave out all of the things that he did in between? His hull designs, his windsurfing career, his filmmaking career, all this stuff. It's like, oh my God, and it's all kind of linked together. It's like, oh my God. So now 7 years later, we're still working on it, and we're up with, this is, I think, 70,000 words, and we're already at the same on this book, 70,000 words. And I've got like collected 600 or 700 photographs from every famous photographer in the world has contributed to this thing. And it's my job to make it into a masterpiece. And I'm not an author. You know, I have help, but people have no idea how much unfun it is to do that. It's so hard to do that. But we have the bones of it. It's going to be really epic.
Will you do
pretty epic.
A larger book?
I'm going to make it larger because
like
there'll be a lot of 2-page spreads, because it's going to have the 69 swell. It's got everything that you ever thought you didn't want to know about George. It's all in there. His genealogy, his life, all of his life's accomplishments, where he rode his first wave.
Your story from down at the ranch?
That one's in here.
That's a good story.
Yeah, I've not read. There's nothing in there from this book. This book starts in 69, basically, other than I go backwards to fill in his childhood and all that. All of his friends have contributed, his lifetime friends. They've donated all their photos. Even Bernie Baker shows up to my friend in England and says, whatever pictures you want, I have all of everything George did in Big Wednesday.
Oh,
otherwise, I need to get him from Milius, who's not going to give them to us unless we pay $4,000 a piece for them. I mean, people have come out of the woodwork to be a part of this. Well, Don Balch is part of it.
Was there in 69 too?
Don Balch gave me all this footage from the swell of 69. Steve Bissell has given me everything he ever took of George. I have everything Jeff Devine ever did. I have it. I got John Witzig, Paul Witzig, Albie Falzone. I mean,
it's hard too because we didn't have these, and the camera thing was very different.
Yeah, but it all seemed to work.
Yeah, it all works fine. But all these guys, Andrew Kidman, everybody's in on it.
And George's camera stuff, the stuff that he did with cameras.
Yeah, he did some camera.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I remember he was
revolutionary stuff.
That's right.
You know what the best part
about that?
Water housings, everything. Yeah.
Good luck paring all that back for the book.
The best part of the book is it's all the interviews that I've done with George, where he just rambles, and he tells me everything about it in his own words. It is so freaking classic. No, let me tell you this, just one story to give you an idea about what this book's like. So George made one hull, and this is the story. He's famous. He's a famous boat builder. You know about his Greenough boats?
I've heard a little bit about
Okay,
them.
well, you
Yeah.
don't know the half of it. So that hull, he only made one design, one boat, George. That boat is used by the U.S. military as a rescue boat. That boat hull's been used by 3 counties in Australia for rescue boats. I have pictures of U.S. bombers dropping George Greenough's boat with a parachute, dropping it down in the middle of the ocean
Navy
to rescue
SEALs.
people.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. No one can get that done. Design a boat and
Nailed it.
and nail it like that. You want to know what the story is? Let me tell you the story. Hey, George, how'd you get interested in boat building? This is how he talks. Oh, yeah, well, you know, I had this rubber duck, and, you know, I was fishing one day, and I hooked up this 6-foot shark on my lure, and he bit the back end of the pontoon, and the thing started leaking air, and I had to pump it up, and I thought, this isn't strong enough. I got to do something else. So I went home, and I bought some plywood and some fiberglass, and this guy said, hey, you can build it in the back bedroom of this old house of mine down at Brokenhead. So I went there and I built the boat in his backyard, and, you know, we started using it. You know, I got caught in a 50-mile-an-hour gale, and the thing just handled really well, you know.
Classic.
So yeah, everyone was really happy with it. Then we took some molds off it, you know, and a couple of counties made rescue boats out of it. That's the whole story. One boat. Every boat that has ever been made that's a Greenough boat came off of that boat he built in his backyard from scratch. And he says, you know, well, the interesting thing is it wasn't designed on a computer. It's just water knowledge. Now, that's the whole quote. I just told you the whole quote. But you read this little thing about this crazy guy that's, you know, barefoot, you know, sitting on the couch with no shirt on. And that's the way he explains it. And then you open the pages and you see all these frickin' epic Greenough boats and the military, you know, running, you know, reconnaissance missions in them. There's no boat that ever got a high sea state rating that high in a boat that small, ever.
Wonder how he went
Made it
about
in his backyard.
that, like from his boat to, you know, getting that on blueprints and like.
No,
you know,
you
who
just
he-
make a set of plans.
There was a guy, I can't think of his name. He's
They drew
actually
a set
from
of plans
Montecito.
off it, the first one.
Yeah.
They're all made off of one set of plans.
And they're still made.
They're
The
still
other
making
boats
and it's still
in Goleta, they still build 17 and 21 footers at Anderson Boats in Goleta.
This is the kind of a guy we're dealing with. So
And he
you know,
shared all this stuff for nothing. Never been monetary. He's always, that's one thing about George. When you did the surfboards, he gave us all the templates for the edge boards, and didn't just say for Marc to build them. He goes, hand them out to everybody. See what people
he
can
didn't
come
say
up
that,
with.
but he said I asked who I could share them with, and he didn't want me to give them to
Well,
you know
not completely.
the big money guys.
No.
But you know, I told him who I wanted to give them to, and so I'm out of permission. But you know, I shared them with all the people whom I thought might be interested.
Only about 4 or 5
Hardly
people.
anybody
Yeah.
did anything.
Just
with
a
it.
few select
it's
people.
too daunting.
so he's a very humble man, and he had a brother too, right?
Yeah, Bill, younger brother, has a winery. Do you know the name of it?
Sausalito Canyon. It's up behind Price Canyon, behind
yeah.
Pismo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's very good wine. You can get it at Rancho.
Yeah.
I buy it all the time.
Just take a quick. Are you okay on time?
Yeah.
What time is
And
it?
then you got out at 5, was it?
Yeah. It's, you know, just
It's
we'll get
5,
close
so-
to wrapping.
Yeah.
I have a kid thing. I'm going to run off too. But hey, it was
Thanks,
good to meet
Cody.
you. I enjoyed that, and
Love
look
you.
forward to hearing the rest of it, you guys.
We covered a lot of ground there,
Yeah, that was
but I
fun.
appreciate you asking about the book. So that book is going to be coming. We may print it by summer, but we're in the polishing stages. So, you know, it's. I want it to be a graphically beautiful, and so I think that part is easy to do. But to have all have a nice continuity with so many different crazy things he's done, because there's a lot of parts to it. And then I have Mavericks. I have my guys surfing Mavericks on the edge boards. You know, that had to succeed before I could write the book.
So when was that? Like in the
That's
like
been
5 years
that's
ago?
continuing to
happening
this
now.
moment as we speak. My guys are in there. They're sending me videos every day. Look at us today.
Do you
know,
have some
Washburn.
pictures you can text me later? of those boards?
Yeah.
I'd like to see those.
Yeah.
I have that stuff. And we went to Australia. You've been a couple times now.
Yeah.
And we all went to visit George. Hopefully we can go one more time.
That's the plan. I'm going to tour the
Yeah, we're
book
trying
there.
to go.
What is he, like 80,
83.
83 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, we're not just geezers now, we're mega geezers.
What did he tell me? Heart attack or shark attack? Putnam, you're going down.
That's funny. Not really.
It was funny.
But
he loves to get a good
the
joke
context
in.
is
Yeah,
funny.
tease you about stuff.
Yeah.
So you are a very busy man with because you're still doing the insurance business, right? And of course,
The
full-time surfboard.
easiest job I have is insurance. That's 2 days a week. I really spend all my time making surfboards and working on the book.
But you were embedded in that insurance company for a long time, right?
I was 45 years, but about 5-6 years ago, I stopped, trying to be the top guy there. And I just, as my accounts have retired, I don't replace them. And I love my accounts. I take good care of them, and they're really good guys, and they're not crazy, needy type of people, or I would just not do it anymore.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy my connections there with those guys. And that's really the easy part of my life. It's everything is very tedious. I make too many boards. I really should
It hasn't
cut
gotten
back
easier
on that.
lately. It's really,
It
this
just
whole
it's tough.
thing has gotten a lot tougher.
It's complicated, huh?
It
seems
Well,
like
it got more complicated
the
after
business
COVID.
part of it.
That's part of it.
Well,
And among other things. But yeah, glassing and
there's not a labor force. There's not people that are really hardcore about making a business out of it. It's a
hard to
dying
make a living
industry.
doing it.
Well, it's
A living wage.
It all started with things being made overseas. That was the death of it, and it started in the 80s, and it's what died a slow death. And I wrote about it in the editorial of Surfer magazine in '77. Future shock, it's coming. I saw it coming, and that's part of the reason I wanted to change my career. I don't want any part of that. I love what we were doing, and I love still doing it the same way. And it's just kind of died slow, and now, I think having tariffs will help strengthen domestic manufacturing. I was always a fan of that. But in our industry, it may be, the next couple generations from now where it comes back, But right now, we're kind of at the tail end of the decline, where everybody's gone to overseas products. And we all buy foreign goods. There's nothing wrong with that. But, I think a lot of it is that our work ethic in America, you don't have people that just will work all day, every day to do something that they love. Everybody wants to be, have a lot of free time and not have to work too hard and get too dirty. And I think that's the underpinning of the real problem with our industry.
It's
There
kind
aren't
of gotten
enough
that
guys
way,
like that.
hasn't it? It's sort of crept up on us.
It has.
So, with you having several businesses for so many years and trying to juggle those businesses, and you've done a very good job. What advice would you have for a young entrepreneur coming up and trying to, get into one or two businesses? Or
If we lived long enough, think of all the things we could learn to do and master, and how rich is life when you can have a vision or a dream and you can pursue it. And I always believe that whatever we do, the most fortunate thing that you can do is to have a passion for something and pursue it, and just pour yourself into it. And you never do it for any other reason than for the love of doing it really well. And then whatever comes. And maybe you don't end up making a living doing that, but in the meantime, you're doing a couple of other things, and something will pan out where you maybe get paid somewhere along the way. Doesn't really matter how. Even Yater, I always remember this, is that I never thought about it till I was older when I started a second career. And I felt kind of bad, like, oh, I'm not core anymore because I took a second job. Well, Yater was a fisherman. He was never a surfboard builder as his primary work.
And how do we think of him?
I never even
As a
thought of that
surfboard
before.
builder.
You think of him as a surfboard builder, but that actually really affected me in the 80s when I realized that. I go, oh, that's interesting, you know. Guys would be a fireman, they have a second business. You can be a teacher and have a second business. Why? You don't have to limit yourself. You know, you can have a number of careers, and they all kind of, there's a synergy and the complementarity between them. Like for me, my white collar work has opened up more avenues in meeting people in the surf world that I never would have had with when I was only a board builder. I didn't know that. I mean, I insured the O'Neill family and Powell Peralta and Santa Cruz Skateboards. And, you know, I became connected to a much larger body of people that were part of my world. And I was just a poor kid eating peanut butter sandwiches and working in my factory all day in the dirt, in the dust, right? So, you know,
I was mad at him for a few years.
It really helped you. I could see that.
When he took off in the insurance industry, I wasn't happy.
Was carrying on the family legacy. It was like
he
a
went to work
duty.
for your dad. I didn't understand that then.
We did two great things. Made both businesses and kept them very successful. Who was your biggest? Who influenced you the most growing up as let's go with the surfboard industry?
God, you're Randy.
I don't know. Well, I was just a child, so I just loved being around people like Jeff White, you know. And I think that being disciplined and diligent and all that, it comes from my mother.
Yeah.
That's how we were raised.
Your work
and so
ethic.
that really came from Mom. And I was inspired by my dad and what he accomplished, especially as I learned what he invested into it. And so, you know, influences in surfboard building are pretty limited just because when you're that young, there's no one taught you. I'm all self-taught, completely self-taught. And I never had a real, some factory job, really. So I was already grown up and I was already doing it. And so, I mean, people that I was compatible with would be a person like Rennie Yater, just because we both were very similar. We just went to work every day and we did everything on a schedule, and you just didn't have to wonder if the other guy was going to do his part or not. And I just loved, that was comforting for me and for him. So you never had a conversation about anything. You just did what you're supposed to do.
That work ethic of Rennie was a huge influence in my life. You know, just to get up, that discipline every day to keep a schedule and be on time. And I was pretty squirrely, believe me, when I was 18 and went to work for him. And sometimes I think he wonders why I'd tell him I was still running my own business for 40 years. And he'd scratch his head and kind of wondered why we always tell about him being an influence on us. Yeah. It's like, why do you guys do that? And I'm like, that's why. And he was like a father figure to Marc. My dad died when I was 12, and Jeff White and guys like Yater were father figures to us, for me. I mean, especially Rennie, and a huge influence.
I love Rennie.
And on Greg Little too.
He rules.
I mean, Little ran his business. He sold Yater's boards, but he based his whole surfboard thing on what Rennie had laid the groundwork for. They had the same bookkeeper. They bought the same materials together. He just basically copied what Yater was doing. And I try and do the same thing with surfboards. That those guys try and carry that on with him too.
Where was your favorite surf spot in Santa Barbara when you were?
What kind of a question is that? Miramar.
Miramar?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have guessed that one, but
our claim to fame is that in the Surfing Guide to Southern California, the same one I studied to know where all the spots in the ranch were, it says Miramar Beach, hang out for the local Grammys. That's the description of it.
You know that the surfing guidebook? I bought that white one, probably, I don't know, 70.
The black one? that was done by Stern, or the
Bank
white
Right.
one. You did
Bank
bank.
Right.
You bought
Yeah.
Bank Rights.
Bank Right.
That
Early
came
70s.
later.
That was second.
That came later. Yeah.
Before there was one by
It was Bill Cleary, a
Bill
surfing
Cleary
guide
and-
to Southern California. That's the one.
and Stern, and I did Mr. Stern's pool in Brentwood for a year. I have a signed copy
Oh, that's great.
from the family.
Well, I gave that one to my son Cody, and then I bought another one down at Rogers, a couple months
love
ago.
it.
But that book, you know, you were talking about that
Oh, it's
earlier,
priceless.
how I can find the place at the ranch or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I've used that book more than once or twice. In fact,
In the original one, I walked into the ranch with the black one that Cleary did. I walked in with the ranch the first time with a gallon of Red Mountain wine and that book under our arm.
can you bring that in? Do you still have that book?
I have, yeah,
I'd love to see that. Yeah.
I love it.
It's really cool. There's a
See how
picture of Greg
different it
Little
is.
in that book, surfing oil piers.
I love it. That's a real fine spot, oil piers. What a pile.
You know, when you think about that,
good.
Oh, everywhere gets good once in a while.
yeah, you're right. When you think about what it really, I was talking with my son Cody about this. We were sitting down at the beach thinking about it. What it took to really put that book together, because you've got to like go down the whole coast and because you can't know everything. You have to probably talk to people,
The
right?
Bank
And
Right
then-
one that you bought, really, he started like way up north.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
think
just
about
on
it.
a
Like,
swell, just on a series of swells, just drove down the coast, taking pictures of everything.
but who's going to give you the name of those spots?
Well, it was even controversial.
Oh, yeah.
Probably
You're
even
right.
the first book was.
I wondered
I
the
would
same
have to
thing
think
as
so.
how did this guy,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
wasn't
it was not popular.
It wasn't popular at first. I can tell you, that was in black wetsuit era,
Yeah.
and when that came out, yeah,
We'd be at Miramar. The guys would come up from LA. They'd come down the little hill there because there's no road to Hammond's. And the classic thing was, hey, which way is Hammond's? We'd point down to Shark's Cove. It's right there.
Yeah.
and if you walked
That's
up from
how
Hammond's,
it was done. No one ever said it's up there.
the crew that was at Hammond's, if you walked up from Miramar and went across the creek, you were going to get rocked. I got rocked. The Mosby brothers and probably these guys.
Good old days.
The Mosby brothers, I was throwing rocks at them.
You grew up in Palo. You grew up
They're younger than me.
You grew up in PV. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, God, I love it.
That's great.
What a blessing.
man.
It's kind of faded away, I guess, for the most part.
Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with?
If you want a beautifully made hat, that's what I love about what you guys do. I mean, how cool is this?
It's shaping.
I made that
Yeah.
hat for you about, I don't remember, 8 or 9 years ago. Maybe
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get so many compliments on
You
it.
look like George Strait right there.
I like that.
Is he younger than 90?
I don't know how old is George. He's not that old right now.
No,
he's
I
up
love
there.
my hat.
Probably,
I'd say
Is
it's
he-
late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe late 70s, maybe not that.
My sister had you make, she loved my hat. Everyone loves my hat. And so my sister, Lisa, had you make her a custom, a brown,
Yeah.
just absolutely beautiful, hat. She loves that hat. So it's really cool to have something like this. I had a hat like this. I was on the ride. I borrowed it. And it was, I have a pinhead, right? And so
Really?
this guy had a bigger
Not
head.
too small.
About his
7
size, like a
1/8.
melon. And so I had all this Kleenex stuffed in the hat band to keep it on. And a gust of wind hit me when I was going on the mission ride, and it sheared it right off the top of my
that's
head.
right.
And I'll never forget
that's
seeing
funny.
it sail out across the field and down
and
into
gone.
the creek.
Oh, that was
And
funny.
you're in this line of 300 horses, and there's no way
Did
to
you do that
go
ride?
retrieve it.
You've ridden to the mission, right?
yeah.
And I
By
lamented.
the winery, it gets so windy right there. Not always,
Oh.
but it was this day.
I lamented losing that hat. That was the coolest hat I ever had. And so this is modeled after that one.
Nice.
And that would have been in the 80s, So, and I don't remember who had made it. It was pretty old and beat, but it had a shorter brim on it.
Probably an
And a
open
straighter
road.
brim. But
Stetson.
it was really cool. I loved
Maybe.
that hat.
Well, I hope you come up on the Rancheros and
I
visit.
will. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I got to get the book. I'm working on the book and stuff. And like as soon as that's done, I'll have a lot more free time. So I'm
And you
hoping
think-
this summer.
I know. So this summer, you think that book will be in print?
I'm hoping. Yeah.
Okay.
It has to
Can't
be
wait to see
perfect.
it.
You can't do it until it's, if you don't feel right about it, you have to be 100%.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely, huh?
Yeah, because like this one, I spent 11 years on, and this one's 7, because I've learned a few things, to make it go a little quicker. Yeah. But man, it's got to be right. Because
a lot of time, huh?
Like this book,
invested.
The only flaw that anyone ever pointed out to me, because I knew every surfboard editor is going to read it, right, was my own friend, Richard Novak, whose own interview is in there that that I recorded of him. I wrote it, transcribed it, and sent it to him to proofread. He sent it back with his corrections. I printed it, and a couple years later, "Hey, Andreini, I wasn't born in 38, I was born in 42. And I said, "You proofread it. I don't know when you were born. You think I made it up?" Anyway, I laugh every time I see him. When we're talking about age, I always mention, when you're born in 38, it's F you, Andreini. It's hysterical. I still tease him about it. He's funny. So, and he says, I asked him the other day, he says, "Oh yeah, the combination to my gate," because I get to park at his house when I surf there and stuff. He says, "Yeah, it's my birth date." "Oh, what, 1938? F you, Andreini.
In little Santa Cruz surfers.
But, I made sure that it was okay. You have to make sure you can't leave anyone out who is going to be butthurt and you can't clutter it. I mean, it's a really delicate thing.
Fine, huh?
Yeah, you get guys writing stories for the book, and they really, you got to cut it back. Out. Yeah, it's hard.
The swell of '69. Where did Greenough surf?
He was out at Indicator.
Was it at Rincon?
Yeah, Rincon. I had surfed tried to surf campus in the morning, and it was just starting to fill in, but the current was so radical. It was kind of almost too much. And then I ended up at Sharks Cove. I did not surf Rincon. My 2 of my buddies went out, and we had a Dodge van, and I had military binoculars, and I was on top of the van watching George out at Indicator on top of this van standing up.
Just so you know, none of us would have gone out there. Even George told me if he hadn't have gone out before noon when it was still only 6 feet, if he would have pulled up and seen what he saw, he said, you wouldn't even have thought of going out.
It was way above my pay grade.
10, 11 feet or something like that?
Oh, no, way bigger than that.
It's 25 feet.
Yeah.
And we're talking old school 25.
No. We're talking about
real 25 feet.
Enormous. It was enormous. No, none of us would have gone out.
I would be on top of that van, and he was out surfing a reef that I'd never even seen break beyond Indicator. There's something out there that
ridiculous.
It was crazy.
Yeah,
Is there pictures of that somewhere?
There's
pictures of the cove, not so much of what George was surfing at an Indicator, and there was only maybe 3 guys out there.
There's a lot of pictures of the swell of 69, and you'll see them in the book. I have pictures of Waimea Bay with waves breaking a mile outside, closed out. It destroyed the North Shore. It went
everywhere.
The biggest swell of the century. It's an enormous swell.
This last swell, it got compared to that, but
it's not.
It wasn't really comparable.
Well, even Mammoth had record snow. I mean, I think that storm
was a record storm
everywhere, huh?
Yeah, it focused just on some places. Santa Cruz was surfable on this swell. It's 20 feet in Santa Cruz.
Easily. I saw, Swift
And they
Street.
were rescuing guys all day long that knew how to surf, that would go out and they get washed all the way down to the wharf from Swift Street.
And you saw what happened to the wharf.
Oh my God, it took the shit house off the top of the wharf and it floated all the way down to the river mouth, the next break down, and washed up on the beach there with all the pipes sticking out.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
There's 2 or 3 workers in it when it washed it off the pier. They had to rescue them.
They got rescued, yes.
They're all fine. It's freaking classic.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Was Greenough, was he knee riding then?
Yes, he is knee boarding. Yeah. He only surfed a handful of times standing up. But his wind sailing career, that's all standing. And he's wave sailing surfer. Yeah, no, he's just...
Wind surfboards were revolutionary too. They were edge-board, flexible spoons made out of carbon fiber.
Crazy.
Wacky stuff. He built all his own equipment.
It's crazy stuff.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for coming in. KP.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I love doing this. It's really
KP,
great.
thanks.
Thank you.
And Cody, thanks for being here.